Greetings, fellow readers. I thought today I'd change it up and go back to DC Comics, specifically a classic Batman story, that being Batman Hush, the introduction of a new Batman rogue, Hush, aka childhood friend of Bruce Wayne, Thomas Elliot. Now, I've heard a lot of good things about Batman Hush. I've heard of how it's a classic Batman story, how everyone recommends you read it at least once. And I do say it does have a lot of positives, but I will also go on record and say that there are a few negatives that I want to address throughout this review. Granted, this one did have a lot of good story elements, such as the romance between Batman and Catwoman seemingly progressing, as well as them fighting side by side against Batman's Rogues Gallery, of which there appears a lot. Not just Hush, but we also get appearances of Joker, Clayface, Killer Croc, Ra's al Ghul, and Poison Ivy as well. And even Superman gets involved in this comic at one time. So I can see a lot of the good benefits with this one. You have a lot of Batman's rogues, the introduction of a new villain for Batman, as well as a personal tie to Bruce Wayne himself, as well as, of course, the romance, as well as also seeing a few of Batman's allies in Oracle, aka Batgirl, and even Tim Drake Robin. And surprisingly enough, the Huntress. All of whom help out Batman during this entire scenario in one way or another. However, one of the things that definitely annoyed me about this entire comic was the sheer amount of twists and turns that it constantly took. Because somehow, in one way or another, all these Batman rogues are all tied to one villain, whom we presume to be Hush, but it is not, in fact, Hush. And while he is a major player, he is not, in fact, the mastermind behind this entire crusade against Batman, this entire chess piece type of game. That honor actually goes to the Riddler. And in my opinion, titling this story Batman Hush, only to have Hush being, while a major player, serving as a red herring to the Riddler's master plan, I felt that was a cheap twist, and I'm just looking at it like, seriously? You're telling me that the Riddler was able to concoct this entire convoluted plan to bring down Batman, or to hurt him in some way? And apparently, this one takes place after two major events. Death in the family, and Killing Joke. Because by this time, Batgirl is crippled. She has already done the role of Oracle for quite a while now, it seems. And apparently the death of Jason Todd is still very fresh in Batman's mind. So this takes place sometime after those two major comic series. Now, I will say this much. The inclusion of a lot of Batman's Rogues Gallery in one way or another was a very well done concept. And in my opinion, I feel like this comic actually would serve well as a novel as well, as a nice little thriller piece. I've actually talked about a similar scenario with Dark Knight Returns in Year 1. I will leave a link for those who want to check out that double review. As well as also, there's a lot of good Batman stories that I have read, this one being one of them, but the constant twists and turns just seemingly annoyed me how, not only that, but we also get to see Two-Face, and whom we presume to be Hush, is Thomas Elliot. We have twice that it looks like Hush pops up, but it's just another bandaged face. And at one point, we have it with Harvey Dent covering up his face after he has had surgery to fix himself, and apparently restore himself to sanity, somehow. And the second time we think it is Thomas Elliot about to unmask himself, it is in fact a Clayface clone of Jason Todd, grown up, far older, but Batman immediately recognizes that it's meant to anger him. And apparently, around this time, Jason Todd's grave is somehow empty. Which, that is left as a dangling plot thread at the end of it, just to kind of entice the reader to read more. Though I do like how it constantly has those twists and turns of how we think we know who the person is behind the bandages, and it's revealed that it's either Harvey Dent or Jason Todd. And then, of course, the most obvious one being Thomas Elliot, who never unmasks himself, but we are led to believe that it is him. And to think, this whole story actually comes around from after taking down Killer Croc, Batman swinging away on his grappling hook, only to somehow have it cut, winding up with him cracking open his skull after landing in the lowest slums of Gotham City. He's about to be pickpocketed by a few low thug crooks to be saved by Huntress, taken to an emergency room where Thomas Elliot manages to fix him because he is a very accomplished brain surgeon, only to then go to Metropolis for a time, winds up with Superman getting possessed by Poison Ivy, having to fight Superman with a kryptonite ring. Now that was awesome. And then after that, going back to Gotham, watching his supposed childhood friend getting shot and killed by the Joker, which evokes an emotional response from Batman where he almost breaks his one rule of never killing his enemies. And he's about to break it because the Joker opens up a lot of negative emotions for Batman, primarily rage and guilt over the death of Jason Todd. And he comes sorely close to killing him. Not just for Jason Todd's death, but apparently now the death of his childhood friend Thomas Elliot. The only person that actually manages to stop him, because Catwoman does try, but all Batman does is target her shoulder wound that she had gotten in a fight with Harley Quinn, and then from there, it is Jim Gordon holding a pistol to Batman's head, stating that if he breaks his one rule tonight, he will be among the search party to track down and take down Batman. I gotta tell you, this comic does really well with some of the more emotional aspects. And while the plot was twisty-turny, it was the emotional aspects that really nailed me into the story. Not to mention, we also got some really neat flashbacks of Bruce Wayne's childhood and his time spent with Thomas Elliot when they were kids. Now, y'all might be wondering, what exactly is Hush's motivation for all this? Why would he go to all this trouble, come up with this convoluted plan with the Riddler, just to be able to take down Batman? And the main reason for this is because Thomas Elliot, like Bruce Wayne, grew up in a rich family. But unlike Bruce, who was more than happy to have his parents around, Thomas wanted the family fortune to himself. And he actually arranged a car crash to kill both of his parents. Thomas Wayne, Bruce's father, manages to save Thomas Elliot's mother, but not his father. And we originally think that's the main motivation for Hush, that Bruce's father let Elliot's father die. But no, it's the fact that his plan failed, that he had to wait for his mother to die finally from cancer before he was able to achieve the goal of getting the funds that he wanted to himself. All of this he put the blame on Bruce Wayne for. And quite frankly, I look at this motivation and go, dude, that is messed up on so many levels, that's not even funny. And the funny thing is, I actually didn't even know about Hush until, in fact, the Batman Arkham City games, where there was a subplot mission where you discover all these bodies that are being mangled up with bits of their facial tissue missing, all of which allows Hush to perform plastic surgery upon himself to look like Bruce Wayne, and thus soil Bruce's name within Gotham City. And this subplot actually gets revisited in the Batman Arkham Knight game, which I need to complete at some point. So this comic does have a lot of positives to it. While the story was aggravating, the characters were well done, the emotional aspects were really good. The motivation for Hush was a little bit questionable. And I still have issues with the fact that it was all Riddler's idea. That in the end, Hush, while being a major player, was merely a pawn in Riddler's game just to try to bring Batman down. And that is all revealed in the last few pages of this comic. And again, I do feel like this would make a very good thriller novel with all the twists and turns. If you agree with me, please let me know about that. However, one of the biggest positives for me in this entire comic was the art style. I mean, look at this. The use of such dark colors with bright flashes of light, The dramatic backgrounds of a dark alley, or a lightning strike behind Batman's head, or even just when he crashes and is left unconscious. Batman Hush's entire art style was very well done, which made the comic very visually appealing. There were a few times that it did look rough to me, but all in all, the same type of story was really accented by the art style. It did very well for itself. Jeph Loeb, Jim Lee, and Scott Williams did a fantastic job of bringing this story to life in artwork as well as narrative. But all that aside, let's get down to the score. So in the end, I feel like putting Batman Hush at a 7.5 out of 10. It was a very good comic with great artwork, but a frustrating story at best, with so many twists and turns like I mentioned before, as well as just that cheap final hook with the fact that it was all Riddler's plan, and that Hush himself, despite this being his debut appearance, he was in the end just another major pawn in the Riddler's plan. And that, I will say, was a major cop-out, especially with how Hush had been built up throughout the entire graphic novel. And once again, I do say that this comic itself would make a fantastic thriller novel. I stand by that. And if you want more similar to that, I would recommend either the Detective Comics series, or if you want a novel style, I recommend checking out Batman Year One and The Dark Knight Returns if you have not done so already. If you're interested, I've done reviews of both of those works. And if you're interested, those will be in the DC Comics playlist. I will also leave a video link if you want to check out either one of those reviews individually. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much for listening to this crazy man's ramblings. Hope you all have an excellent day, and keep on reading, my friends. This is Rambling Collector, signing off.